to the cloud.
Okay. Hi, this is Leora Alderson with Gardens All.
And Coleman Alderson with Gardens All. Hi, folks.
We're excited today to be here with Jared Guilford of Earth First Farms. Farm, actually, I should say, singular, Earth First Farm. And we first learned of Jared when we saw this amazing photo that he posted on Facebook of his family farm, essentially. And the caption also captivated. So we'll share that image in the article. But he said, proud to be farming the land I grew up on. What was lawn 1 year ago is now a productive food system. And Jared, before we go any further, I'm hearing myself as an echo in the background, so you might try turning your volume down just a little bit.
Okay.
If it persists, then it might be an earbud session for you if you have one, but we'll see how this goes.
Is that better?
Yeah, so it's mainly when I'm talking that I'm hearing it, and I'm not hearing it now, so yeah, that's definitely better.
Okay.
Okay, so tell us, so you basically just 1 year ago, what we're looking at is a fantastically beautiful organized garden with lawn. Is that right?
Yes. And even more so, I got my soil test back. Well, it was 1 year ago that I broke the ground and, started forming my permanent beds and whatnot, but I moved back in January of 2016, and I was leasing another farm down in Southwest Virginia near Roanoke or Blacksburg area, and so I got my soil test back. The pH was 5.5. The soil scientist told me to set my expectations very, very low. But, within a year, adding a lot of minerals and organic matter and compost, have been able to grow a lot of food on that space.
Now, just to find out where you are exactly, you're talking about this farm, it's up in Maryland, is that right?
Yes, I'm in the Piedmont of Maryland, so it was quite rural when I was growing up, but it is now a sprawling suburb, and I'm right between Baltimore and DC, so we're slowly getting swallowed up by the sprawl is what has happened.
Well, how nice for nature, essentially, to have a farm and be farming there. And from the standpoint of a farming business, it's fantastic because you're in between, two metropolises, essentially, in suburbs.
Yeah.
For selling. So I would imagine you have your choice of markets to attend, but first let's back up just a bit. And how did you get started? How did you decide to come back and farm in your family farm? It sounds like you decided to get into farming first because you were leasing other farmland. And then did you begin on your family farm with this full size, whatever size that is that you're gardening or farming now, or did you start with a garden and just grow from there?
Well, I started gardening when I was a kid. When I was very young, me and my little brother, I was about like 8 years old. He was about 6. And we found a packet of watermelon seeds. We planted them in our old sandbox and watermelons grew. So to me, that was pure alchemy and like really amazing. So I did a little bit of, gardening here and there. And then when I was 18, studying at university, I got more serious. And even though I was studying liberal arts and music, I was spending all my time, my extra time, my weekends at farms, just interning, volunteering. And then so in January 2016, or a little bit before that, my sister bought the property next to my parents. So my dad asked me if I would like to come back and farm his land. And it is a suburban lot. It is not a farm. So I was starting from a raw, just lawn. And it is, it's been a journey, but there's been successes and failures.
Right.
You mentioned a suburban lot. So were there any issues? We've on our site we've written articles pertaining to homeowner associations and conditions and covenants and all that. Did you have any issues over tearing up a yard and planting a garden?
Yeah, so technically, um, everything I'm doing is illegal. I am on a HOA, but we're very far off the beaten path. Like we were the flag lot, so we're back off of it. But and a lot of my neighbors know about it. A lot of my neighbors are customers of mine, and they're all very supportive. If I was like on the main neighborhood road, they'd probably say something, but yeah, it hasn't been a problem. And I had like pigs last year, and um, you know, so that definitely wouldn't have jived with the HOA, but yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, definitely. So what size garden is that we're looking at in that wonderful drone shot that your friend took?
That's a half-acre market garden.
Okay, fantastic. I see a greenhouse and what looks like well, maybe it looks like a tunnel or a hoop house.
Or a cattle panel
Yeah, cattle
structure?
panel.
What have you got going on there to the upper right-hand corner?
Yeah, I have two separate hoop houses, and it's altogether 96 feet of hoop house. One is 52 feet, and the other one is, you know, the remaining 38 or however much that was. And I bought that used from someone off Craigslist, but I was using the larger hoop house as a greenhouse for a lot of my spring seedlings. But I also built out a climate controlled uh, room in my, I rent out the basement from my parents as my living space. So I built a room down there where I can fit 52 10 by 20 trays. So, and that, you know, it'll be a polar vortex outside, and that's staying 75 in there. So because I have a part-time job, and when I had them in the greenhouse, I was running home and watering on my lunch break all the time. Like, it was crazy. But in that climate controlled room indoors under grow lights, I only have to water every other day. So it works with my other work schedule.
Mhm.
Fantastic. So now, did you go to market all season last season? So you had a productive garden last
Yeah.
year, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I didn't even know if I was going to have a garden last year because the ground there is basically bottomland and it is so wet. And then I finally found a farmer that would plow it and till it for me. And that was like late April. And then my first farmer's market was like mid-May. And I just came with like microgreens and sunflower shoots and like lettuce greens. But I didn't miss one market the entire duration. So all the way from mid-May to November, right until Thanksgiving, I had stuff, and yeah, made a modest amount each week.
Nice. So you microgreens. Now, what are you going to market? Did you already go to market this summer? So, I mean, this spring so far?
Yep, I've began my market, and already I have like a lot more variety. I'm not doing the microgreens as much this year. They're just like finicky, and to me they're a bit of a fad, and I rather grow things in the soil rather than potting soil. But I might revisit that again if there has been a lot of interest. So I might do that for some customers. But yeah, I've started my market, and things are in the ground growing, so hopefully they keep growing.
Definitely. So are you the only one tending the garden now?
Yeah, it's me and a half acre and a lot of work.
Yeah.
So last week we had an opportunity to interview Jean-Martin Fortier, the author of the Market Garden book. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah, he's my idol.
Yeah, right. I mean, ours too. It was fantastic interviewing him. And so the data that he shared is that his original farm is 1.5 acres, and that it is grossing 150,000 now, 5 acres, and netting essentially 75,000 per half acre. So, sorry, netting 75,000 total. Yeah, for the So yeah, each acre is net is grossing at about 75,000 and netting about half of that, 50% of that. So that's that's where you're heading, right, with your half acre.
Yeah, that's definitely Jean Martin and Curtis Stone, author of the Urban Farmer, have been huge um, mentors of mine. I've read their books thoroughly, and the beginning of my gardening career it was much more idealistic. The permaculture, like I wanted to be growing perennials here and there, but it only takes a month to grow a radish, and I could wait years for my pawpaws to start fruiting and stuff. So, but yeah, that's definitely the goal. Like I'm working to try to be able to make a decent living off this while maintaining the work-life balance. But these first couple years, I'm kind of just grinding.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's what it takes. I mean, JM indicated that basically it's still 50, 60-hour work week in season, and that's just what you do. But then they take, a month or two off in the winter. So, and it's work you love. When it's work you love, it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, definitely.
So what kind of profitability are you seeing now? Like, what does it cost you at your market? Are you going to the same one? I presume it is, since it's just you're just going to one market on the weekend. Is it just Saturdays?
Last year was just Saturday. This year I couldn't find a good weekend market, so I'm doing a Thursday market. And it's a beginning market, and I took a chance with the beginning market this season because they didn't charge me to be a vendor. So I'm starting to see a lot more customers come in, but I've only had 2 markets so far. So, but being in between Baltimore and DC, it's a very wealthy area. Like there's a lot of expendable income around here, but it's interesting. The potential of the markets in this area in Maryland, from what I've seen so far, are only half the potential of when I was in Blacksburg, which is the population down there was about a quarter of what we have up here. But the best farmers up here are only making $1,000 a market. Like they're topping out at $1,000, when down there is like $2,000, $2,500. So that just shows me right off the bat at these markets, it's half the potential. But after visiting so many farmers markets, I realized Blacksburg Farmers Markets is one of the best in like the country. And why? Because it's a place that people want to go. They have music, it's a permanent structure, so if it's pouring down rain, you stay dry, and it's in the center of town. So like everyone just gravitates toward it. When we're like in the parking lot of a shopping center, and it's kind of like people have to make it like out of their way. And
yeah, and there's probably a grocery store nearby if you're in the shopping center, and they have to go to the grocery store anyway for staples. So
yeah,
then you figure, okay, well, I'm not going to walk across and plus it's new, so it may take some time to catch on, but it's really good to know about Blacksburg. We have some people in the Planting for Retirement group who are struggling to get a new market going, and that's the real challenge, getting people to support it. But you just gave some good ideas on how to do that right off the bat, and that's if you can find a permanent location, you can find a permanent structure, you can attract and invite some musicians to come down, and because what it sounds like, Blacksburg is kind of like a almost like a fair, like a weekend fair.
Yeah.
Hang out.
and the family
And
gets
it's become a big social event for them. And,
Yeah.
you know, even if they're not buying things, people being there.
Yeah, and pretty soon the caravan trucks pull up and they're selling funnel cakes and cotton candy.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All kinds of
No,
entertainment.
no.
Well, that's what's happening at our state ag
Yeah.
farmers
Oh.
market. I had a question for you, Jared. Your focus is on the markets. Have you focused any on, say, the chefs in the area? Or,
Yeah, I've begun selling to a few restaurants. And yeah, I'm really trying to, because so at the markets I can sell retail for quite a high price, but chefs, they're used to buying from food distributors, so you really do have to be competitive. And I sell right now to a couple restaurants. I just had another restaurant come out to the farm yesterday, and he wants me to supply him 10 to 15 pounds of salad mix a week. But it's like I would have to sell to him for at $6 to $8 a pound, when at the market I can sell it for $10 to $12 a pound. And at my level of productivity right now, I'm just selling out of all my salad mix anyway. So it's like I need to get my systems up, my fertility, and my efficiencies up before the restaurants, before I can regularly supply them. But I have been selling to them. And that was just, knocking on the door. I got denied about 10 times before they finally bought my stuff. But I just kept giving them free samples until finally they called me back. So that was exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry.
what about have you had any areas of interest in doing a community supported agriculture project?
I did, but I've worked at CSA farms before, and being such a small garden, I'm following more the wisdom of Curtis Stone now, where if you're really trying to make a living off that small of a garden, you can't really provide the diversity that people want in a CSA. So,
Yeah.
like last year, I was growing broccoli, onions, potatoes, cabbage, but like, I was making like $3, $5 a pound. And when that same space, I can make $10 a pound on lettuce and get get a lot more poundage out of it. So I don't think the CSA is going to work for my model just yet, but I've been reaching out to different neighbors and just getting them to buy, weekly buy shares. I want to set up an email list because I finally got my walk-in cooler going now. So set up an email list where this is what I have this week, this is what I'll have next week. Send me what you want, and I can put it in, put your order together, label it in a, nice little bag, and you can just drive up the driveway, pull in, open the walk-in, take your bag, and we can worry about payment later,
Nice.
Very
Yeah, well, that's a
cool.
good way to do it. Much better than you having to drive around delivering it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could work is if you were able to sell to the distributor who sells to the restaurants. And then you go with one stop, you go to the distributor and you sell them larger quantities. But then there again, you're looking at the wholesale, even less than the wholesale because of their markup.
Yeah.
It seems to be, in your instance, Jared, just a matter of, the scale. You're making a conscious decision to keep it small and tight and intensive. And of course, that does play into the varieties that you can have. And you mentioned lettuce as being one of your top earnings producer. Do you have any others that are really up there in terms of pricing?
Yeah. Basically, the high value crops per square foot. So your cutting greens, your arugulas, your culinary herbs, and I do the head lettuces, but lettuce mix and a salad mix. And my salad mix changes seasonally. So right now I'm doing a red and green leaf lettuce with pea tendrils and red Russian kale. But in the summer, it could be red and green leaf lettuces with, radicchio and parsley. So it's constantly changing, and the customers really enjoy that. It's super labor intensive, but I have a lot more labor and time to expend than money or land. So that's the boat I'm in.
Yeah, and so I just see on your Facebook where you were saying salad mix Sunday, from 2017. So that's basically what you go out and how long does it take you to gather enough to take to a farmer's market? Basically to harvest, I guess, all that you have available, since you said you're having a hard time keeping up with demand. So how long does it take you to harvest your salad mix for farmer's market day?
Salad mix, maybe 2 hours tops, but as far as harvesting for market, it can be an all-day event. I'll wake up at 6 in the morning and you're harvesting and washing until dark. But now that I have a walk-in cooler, I can spread it out a little bit more. But definitely the first year was a grind. So talking about finances, I started with my savings, my life savings of $10,000, and I made money my first year, but just all of it, reinvested into the farm. So it was definitely hard with only $10,000 and just me, because I budgeted for a walk-in cooler and a deer fence, but I did not budget for $3,000 worth of truck repairs. There's all these, with working with such small margins, it was really difficult. But, I'm not, you just got to make sacrifices. I'm not going out on the weekends. I'm not buying clothes or, things like that. It's just, and anytime you start a business, it's going to be hard. I mean, you look at restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And any business is hard. In fact, the figure that we covered recently is that 50% of businesses fail in the first 5 years.
Wow.
And 33% fail within the first 10. So let's see, was that right? Yeah, that's right. And so, and that's not just farms, it's not just restaurants, that's basically a generic across the board businesses. Yeah.
Wow.
And so of course there are some, we hear all the time about restaurants as a hard business and they fail because they have small profit margins. Well, farms do too. However, one of the things with farms, and this is something that some of our planting for retirement people who consists of an audience of people who maybe just have a garden to those who are already farming. So there's a wide range, and some of them maybe even just be growing in pots at this point with a dream to farm. So there's all age ranges and all levels of current.
Cool. And that's what it's really all about, gardening for yourself. And then you might say, hey, I really enjoy this more than I like my regular job, and I'm willing to kind of put the time in and the investment to make this a venture.
Exactly. I mean, that's what people are saying. And some of them are just trying to test the waters by starting small and by, trying out the market growing. One of the questions some of them have had is, I'm just growing enough for my family and to put some away for winter, like canning and pickling and drying. So how do you balance out? And that would apply to you as well, because you're feeding yourself and probably your parents, your family as well. So how do you balance out what we set back and save for ourselves, including setting aside for winter versus what you take to market?
Well, generally, everything I eat is what we call farmer grade, which is just whatever I don't sell. But, whenever I'm harvesting, I'm eating good. I'm just snacking out there in the field. I'm grazing.
To keep the energy going, right? The harvester, right?
Yeah. But so generally right now it's whatever I'll have left over at market is free for, I'm feeding my parents, my sister and her family, her 2 kids, my brother, his wife, right now it's nice because the walk-in cooler's going. So I'm like, hey, I'm done with market for the week. There's loads of veggies in there. You know, it's going to go to either me or the chickens. So you guys can snack all you want.
Nice.
And they've really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
How did you come by the walk-in cooler? And is it basically is an outdoor thing that you have set up, or is it in a shelter, or how? Would you explain that a little more, please?
Yeah, I tried to just build a really insulated shed, but I bought all the material and it was already like $400 for an 8x8 shed just in lumber. So I returned all the lumber, found a liquor store in District of Columbia that was closing down, went down there, um, picked it up. The guy had never put it together. It looked like a bomb shelter from the 1950s. I assembled it outside, so it is outside at my place. It was missing two parts of the roof. I basically made a sandwich with, rigid foam board, 4 inches of rigid foam, and then 2 OSB boards. And that's pretty good insulation. And then I just put a tin roof over it and then cut a hole in the back, put in an AC unit, and then installed the CoolBot. And it was 95 degrees here last week and it was down at 38. So that was the big test.
Nice. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's going to be a big help. So how are you washing your greens? What kind of equipment are you using for that?
Now my washing station, my packing station is something that I need to improve, and I'm looking to follow people like Michael Kilpatrick or Curtis Stone, the work they're doing, where they're refurbishing old washer machines for spinning. But my big thing, I try to pick it real clean. And I'm real honest with my customers that my stuff is not washed. But things like spinach and stuff, I'm just using like three bucket system, and then I'll spin them with a like a laundry bag and just. But that's tough. And won't be doing that for long, but I had to pick and choose my priorities for this winter as far as what I wanted to invest in.
Absolutely. Well, what is it? What kind of price are you looking at for commercial grade spinner, washer and spinner? And they come together. So where we are with that, just so you know, is we just have gardens basically. And our garden keeps growing each year. As you can see from the window, we're in the woods, so we don't have a lot of light space for growing just yet. Our future vision, we have some property about 35 minutes away. It's not great soil, so we're looking at what we might grow there, how we might build the soil. It's also hilly. It's not nice level ground. So those are the things. So we're actually doing a lot of research ahead of time on what kind of things and crops we might grow, what kind of market gardening we'll be doing. So we haven't looked into pricing of equipment like what you're talking about. Do you know how much it would cost?
Yeah, you can build it's more about refurbishing these old washers to be a green spinner. And you can easily set something up. But, you got to think about, do you already have a shed or a lean-to? Do you already have a space for that? But for less than $1,000 you can build a lean-to or a small pole barn, and set up your root washing table and a refabbed washer machine, and then you need a drying rack for definitely under $1,000. And I would look to Curtis Stone's Urban Farmer for the breakdown on that, because he breaks it down. He has diagrams, he has material lists, and it's It's I would say it's worth it, but for me and my scale right now, like I would like to have that washing set up, but I'm washing all my beets, my carrots, my turnips, my radishes just under a tree on a table where I can spray it with a hose and get them clean, and then I bunch them, and uh, they're like my quality is above and beyond, you know, my competitors. So I'm all right in that respect. Yeah.
That's great. So what are you selling your radishes for now?
What am I selling them for?
Yeah.
I sell them in $3 bunches, so I guess it's like $6 a pound because they're like about half-pound bunches.
Good. What varieties are you growing?
For the radishes, I do the Easter egg mix is nice, and then the classic red like Chariot, Rover, Gloriette, I think was one. All those are good, and yeah, it's just a matter of harvesting them and having them thinned properly, and then what I overlooked, and I think a lot of people overlook, is selling and the distribution and all that. You know, I thought it was so hard to grow all this stuff, but now I'm finally growing it. I'm like, oh, growing's the easy part. It's selling that's the hard part. So like, you see it all the time at farmers markets where people aren't engaging the customer. You got people on their phone checking, you know, their Facebook, and they're just letting customers walk by when customers are coming to a farmer's market to meet their farmer.
Yeah.
You know? So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And so that's what you're doing. And so you're doing well because of that awareness, I would imagine.
Yeah, and like some people want to, you know, they'll buy vegetables, but then they want to ask you like about their garden, or like, why does my tomato look yellow? You know, stuff like that. And those little things I've noticed, and just remembering their name, that you're their first stop when they come to the market, because they're like, oh, I want to see how Jared's doing today.
Yeah, that's true. I was at a local one today, and we visited with the Mosers, you know, some of our favorite farmers at a small little market. And it's like, oh, hey, where you been? How you been doing? You know, just it really is special. And I think if you get a handle on the whole process, that this is a community type event.
Yeah.
The more communal you can be back and forth, and I've learned a lot from these folks just hanging around, asking them questions.
Oh yeah.
That's a perfect place to go and learn, not just about gardening, but also about production and the sales and all that. So totally with you on that. And it gives you an edge. It really does, by the way you were describing how you're seeing folks kind of kick back and be passive versus standing up, welcoming people to your booth. So it's really cool.
Speaking of advice, this is meandering around our conversation here just a little bit, but we haven't had very much luck with broccoli yet. And you mentioned broccoli. So how's your broccoli? How did it do last year? And did you have a spring broccoli? How's that going?
So I'm not doing broccoli this year because, so I learned this from, again, talking to these small market gardeners that are actually making a decent living and not living off their spouse's income, or they're just like have generational wealth or something. And what sets us apart, the local grower, from, you know, your supermarket veggies, is that we can be so fresh. So broccoli, honestly, that'll be fresh for 3 weeks in the fridge. But arugula, the lettuce, the salads, like after a week, it's wilty and not looking good. So that's what really sets us apart. And I really couldn't compete on the price of these other larger farmers when they're growing their broccoli. I had a great broccoli crop last year, and everyone else at market was selling theirs for $3 a pound. I wouldn't budge at $5 a pound because to me, I rather eat it if I'm gonna sell it for $3 a pound. But
Yeah.
and I basically sold all of it. But so spring was really good, and then fall, I had about 500 row feet of broccoli get eaten by harlequin beetles, even though it was under. Yeah, even though it was under agricultural fabric, they just went right under, and so that was hard. And in the fall, the cabbage loopers, like I use strictly organic practices, but I've also taken a moral standpoint at this time to not even use any organic sprays. I just don't want to farm that way. I want to try to find better ways. So broccoli, you know, there was cabbage loopers all over my broccoli, and because I don't want to spray BT, I'm just going to have to not grow broccoli because customers don't want worms all over their broccoli.
Well, we've had struggles and issues with broccoli and cauliflower too, because
Yeah.
cauliflower is an extra thing of blanching, you know, covering the head with the leaves and all that. So, and it takes up a lot of space. I mean,
Yeah.
some of our broccoli were like 6 feet tall, and they didn't flower. We did.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a sort of a sad state. We ate the leaves.
Yeah, the leaves are great for juicing. I mean, that is one of the disadvantages with we eat lots of salads here, but one of the disadvantages about the greens is you can't freeze it, you can't can it, you know, and you can't really dry. I guess you might be able to dry it and create a powder out of it. I don't know, but I guess the main thing we would do with leftover lettuce after market, if you had some that needed using before it went bad, would be to juice it, like in green juice. What do you do?
With my leftover lettuce, usually, yeah, my demand has been pretty high, so I very rarely have a lot left over. If I'm not eating it, family's eating it. But last year, all my extra produce went to, besides people, my chickens, and I just have homestead amounts of chickens, and I had 2 hogs last year, and I grew the hogs out. So from piglets all the way to full size to butcher, I only had to buy 2 bags of feed. So they were eating kale, broccoli, and lettuce all year long. And I would also go collect compost scraps from the local organic market, it's basically like a Whole Foods, but another name. And but yeah, so they got a lot of my extra stuff. But right now, just my chickens will get my extra stuff. But yeah, we love juicing too. Juicing's great. So we try to do a lot of that.
You mentioned you are growing organically. How are you replenishing your soil as you go along?
So when I broke ground, it was very raw, degraded, depleted soil, a pH of 5.5. The soil scientist said it was the lowest levels of phosphorus he's ever seen in a test. So on a half acre, I spread 1,000 pounds of lime. I spread 800 pounds of Tennessee brown rock phosphate. And I've probably spread 10 to 15 yards of compost. And I have been buying that in because I could not produce that amount of compost, especially without a skid loader.
Yeah, and in our conversation with J.M. Fortier, he said he had no problem at all with bringing in dirt, bringing in compost. You know, it just takes so long to build up that organic.
Yeah.
You know, time is precious, right?
Yeah.
And also failed crops. And so, you know, to give the crop the best chance of making it right off the bat, it's worth the investment. So did you actually bring in soil, did you say, as well?
I didn't bring in the soil. I brought in, all those minerals, as I mentioned, and then lots of compost. So yeah, 10 to 15 yards of stuff that I've spread over the seasons. So, but the big thing was as soon as I moved back, so January 2016, I had about 20 chickens on a movable trailer and 2 hogs, and I just rotated them every day in that half acre. So they busted up the sod, they're fertilizing, but mostly it was to aerate the soil, and then I had it plowed and tilled, and then I formed my beds. And
Yeah.
and so that helped a lot, but really, I think the compost is really key. And then I'm using different organic fertilizers like feather meal, bone meal, blood meal, and granulated chicken manure.
Are you on a standard schedule of applying these? Or is it according to how plants are doing?
I basically have like, a standard operating procedure of how I prepare each bed where it's like, 5 or 4 5-gallon buckets of compost, and then um, like 2 containers worth of the nitrogen fertilizer. So it's pretty standardized, but it took me like many failed beds of like, oh, they're not getting enough nitrogen because things are not growing. And,
Mhm.
sometimes I was afraid to like throw down that fertilizer, even though it's organic and it's like Omari approved. I was scared I was going to burn the plants, but especially things like broccoli, it's hard to over fertilize broccoli.
Yeah, we got some luscious leaves out of ours. I mean, they were big, huge leaves and 6-foot plants. It's just,
Yeah, they're great for slaw and chopped up into salads and juiced as
Yeah.
well. So it's interesting that, the broccoli leaves, there's so much of them, and they also have a tremendous amount of nutrition, and yet you don't usually see them at the grocery store. Most people don't know to actually eat those as well. Are you finding that? Have you sold any of your broccoli leaves or did you at market?
No, I think and I wonder if yours was so tall because it's shady back there that they were trying to capture a lot of light. But I have eaten a lot of broccoli leaves in the past, and like compared to kale, I think it is harder to digest.
yeah.
But I was eating a lot of broccoli leaves. But anyway, for juicing, they're great. But I did notice last year when I had some deer pressure, eat some of my broccoli. The leaves that got eaten, the plant was unable to photosynthesize as well. So the heads were a lot smaller. So I think they need those large leaves in order to make a nice head. Because
Yeah.
technically the head is a flower. So
True. Yeah, we weren't, the ratio, right? We basically only harvested the lower ones that looked like they were older,
oh,
anyway.
cool.
For green juice, which, then you take out the digestion issue a good bit because most of it's pulverized, pre-pulverized. That worked out pretty well.
I wondered, you talked about the deer. Do you have a strategy for them? Is that deer fence working for you?
Yeah, so the first year, because of my unexpected truck expenses, I was unable to put up a deer fence, and it was fine for until July when so it's a half-acre garden, but basically at any time I'm only cultivating a quarter of an acre. The other quarter of an acre is cover cropped or something. Um, but last year it was fine until my cover crop of oats and peas died. So that was almost like a buffer. And then it was just overnight they found the garden. And I have a dog that stays out all night, which helps a lot, but it did not matter. So I got a crop permit from the state where we can bow hunt all year round, and I have some hunter friends that set up. And but then this year it was a priority to get that 8-foot deer fence up like as soon as possible, and it's been a big change. But I still see them, all around the garden. The other day, the door was open and they waltzed right in. They were in there, all the deer tracks. And then they tried to get out through the closed door and just busted right through it. But So now I'm gonna always have the doors closed, even if it's overnight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important.
Is it electrified at all? Have you?
Nope, not yet. It's just 8 foot of that poly, like black poly fencing. And so for a half acre, um, all my materials were probably $1,500. And that's the fencing, that's my 10-foot T-post that I got used from an old farmer. And I bought a bunch of 6x6 or 4x4 posts for like the doors and the corners.
Mm-hmm. And you have, this is polyfencing. What was your source on the deer?
Man, I'll tell you, sourcing for organic amendments, farming materials has been very challenging.
Huh.
I'm getting it from the same place I'm getting it from when I lived 5 hours south in Virginia. So that's Seven Springs in Floyd.
Yeah.
And they're the only people that are selling these amendments and these fertilizers. And it's crazy. Like, we have all these southern state farm stores around here, but they, they don't have a lick of organic ingredients. And so it's really hard to source. And luckily, we have a local co-op that's buying it all from Seven Springs, like in pallets, so we can all share costs on that. And that's Purple Mountain Organics, and they've been a big help to me.
Oh, that's good to know. So we'll
That
add that in
good.
because we have some growers in your area. I don't know if exactly like in your same exact area, but there may be an issue for a number of people.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure it is. It was tough.
Yeah, we have the fifth season down here in Greensboro. I don't know whether you know about them, but they don't have. It's more like a store. They don't have a huge warehousing type situation where they could have the fencing and all that.
Yeah.
We have a Tractor Supply for some of the
We
bigger
have Tractor
things.
Supply for some things, which is pretty cool. We like Tractor Supply, but they're not into organics per se.
No.
So that's an interesting thing for our viewers to understand how important it is if you are going organic. Maybe that's something an enterprising person would want to get into, is set up a co-op or something.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I didn't realize how difficult it was to find these materials, and I am in a very populated area, between, like you said, two metropolitan areas, and there's lots of organic farms here.
Yeah.
So like my buddy Cliff Davis, who runs Spiral Ridge Permaculture, he was telling me he made more money in his like 10th year in 1 year than his previous 10 years combined, because he opened up a co-op off his farm, and he's in Summertown, Tennessee, where it's like homesteaders and small farmers, but no one could get the non-GMO feed, the organic fertilizer. So he's like, I need the organic feed. Why don't I just buy it all in? And he's doing great now.
Fantastic. Well, that's good to know, because that really could be a viable business opportunity, and sort of like incidental side business that turns into be a predominant business. If, like in his case, it's that profitable. It makes a lot of sense, because we're kind of in a rural area where something like that might work as well.
It would take us about 3.5 hours to drive up to Floyd, so 7-hour round trip. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to time to let you go, but I wanted to just ask a couple other questions. One is, are you growing any kind of what would be classified as something exotic, like beyond the arugula and red lettuce or red leaf lettuce or whatever that might be a little more unusual for your salad mixes? Are you growing any kind of exotic crop?
I like to grow, the radicchia is not that exotic, I guess, but like I was trying different sorrels and but nothing too exotic. I also have a part-time job at the Green Pharmacy Garden, where I'm the director, and That's a world-renowned herb garden with over 300 species of native and non-native herbs.
Nice.
So I could throw some of those in, like if I really wanted to spice it up. But I'm finding more and more people they're not always so into trying new things.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to get them to try the pea shoots and the sunflower shoots. Like, I'm up there on my soapbox, like, this is a good source of protein. Like,
Right. And they're
Yeah.
highly dense nutrition for sure.
yeah.
You said the Green Pharmacy?
Yeah, the Green Pharmacy Garden, and that's Dr. James Duke. He wrote a million bookseller, sold over 1 million copies, and his book was The Green Pharmacy Garden, and he's written over 30 books. He was an ethnobotanist for the USDA.
Wow.
Okay. To know about that.
Great connection
And
there.
great to work there. Yeah. It's very much so.
Mhm.
Would they be able to do, now they sell fresh greens, right?
No, we're a medicinal plant education garden. So we're hosting tours, workshops, and we'll sell some plants here and there, but mostly it's education and for research and just really a sanctuary and a relic of Dr. Jim Duke's work.
It sounds wonderful. It's reminiscent of what we have in North Carolina, which is where we are, is Gaia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've had some of them out to the garden. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, it's how wonderful for you to be so surrounded by green and growing things.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
What is it you're growing this year? Remind me the specialty things.
Oh, longevity spinach. It's
Oh, yeah.
spinach. And we were looking at growing some ashitava. I have some seeds, but I haven't got them going yet. And ashitava is another exotic, not in Asia, but around here. So we're looking at trying to do a few different things, as well as we're trying goji berries, which have a lot of, what do you call it? Anti-free radical content.
Yeah, right.
Antioxidants, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and lyceum, the goji berry lyceum, it's very easy to propagate too. So as soon as you get one going, you can take cuttings in the spring and you can have a nice, orchard of that very soon.
That's a good time.
Yeah.
Ours got demolished by deer last year, so
yeah.
but they're coming back nicely, and we're smarter this year. So along those lines, you mentioned in the beginning, and so this is somewhat wrapping up the questions. You said some successes and failures, and you mentioned the broccoli, and the issue with the beetles and the worm. What was it? The cabbage
loopers.
worm.
Yeah.
Cabbage groups.
Thank you.
Loopers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what else? So those are some of the disasters, and then your truck repair. What else? Were there any other failed things you've learned from?
Yeah, just, when I moved back, everyone's very willing to help and very interested. And, but, after having a few volunteers in the garden, everyone realizes it's a lot harder. And it's not always fun. And they're like, wow, it's 95 degrees. You're not going to take a break. It's like, no, still got to keep working. So that's a challenge. And just like adapting to the weather, like, adapting your business plan. You might think you want to grow, the salads and this, but maybe your soil's not ready for that, and you got to start out just growing the stuff you can grow, your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your summer squash, and then just being able to have a nice balance of work and life, so you're not just working all the time, because you begin this path for the lifestyle and being outdoors and being in touch with nature, and then you're like, wait, I'm working more than the corporate job that I quit. Like, but you got to think long-term investments and proper financial planning in the beginning, I think, was a very key key thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important advice, and, you know, big picture thinking as well as proper planning. But what you're looking at is hard work up front, and for, you know, essentially accruing value over time. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, you're working 40, but still 60 hours a week in the garden is better than 60 hours a week in a cubicle, and you
Oh
get,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
even when it's hot, even when, you know, just being out with the plants, being out in nature and being
Yeah.
out.
I would say 60 hours a week in the garden's better than 40 hours a week in a cubicle.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. I agree. Yeah, we definitely agree. Yeah. So, yeah, so it's, but I think it's really important because we've heard this from other people that we've interviewed, and it's really important to remember that it definitely is hard work. So if people are wanting to do it to have an easier, laid back life, like for instance, our Planting for Retirement group is the concept of earning supplemental, growing food for supplemental food and or income, supplemental income or exclusive income, you know, if needed to support oneself. And yet, if many people are thinking of doing it in retirement, basically they could be creating a job for themselves. That's
Yeah.
a lot more work than they had imagined, unless they take it into also the lifestyle concept, and like what you're doing at the farmers market and what JM Ford PA talks about, and that is the community and the connection with people, and even the connection with plants and nature. You know, there's no way to create that and replace that, and that's really adding so much more value and quality of life than, you know, than just the tangibles of the obvious hard work.
And Jared, that's one of the things we appreciate about you, and of course JM Fortier, is that you're out there demonstrating that you don't have to have acres and acres and acres
Yeah.
to have that sort of community connection, to do everything that, you know, Big Farm does at a very much smaller scale, at a reasonable you know, cost of time and energy, and to do it so you know, productively and in a healthy way. So it doesn't. I think this is, meeting folks like you are always, it's always an inspiration. You, whether you realize it or not, you are out there kind of demonstrating that this can be done, and you are doing it. It isn't. We're not just talking theory here. This is you know,
Yeah.
hands in the dirt, feet in the mud, all of that. And
Yeah.
you're one of these that is, along with some of the guys that you mentioned earlier, are, you know, Curtis and those guys. You're like the wave. You may be the second wave, but you're pushing forward and showing us, include, how we might find our way in this wonderful garden venture.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's, you know, what a lot of it is just going for it too, because yeah, we can talk theory all we want, and I did it for several years, and then, like, you know, a lot of my book smarts weren't that smart, and and you know, just like really putting, maybe you don't really like gardening that much when you really start doing it, and maybe you want to be more the facilitator, and you can be, you know, maybe you like dealing with the customers more. There's many different careers and options in this movement where you can be your own boss. You can do something that you believe in, that that you don't feel like you're selling yourself out. That's not just being in the dirt or, you know, doing the physical aspect. Everyone has something to give, and even if you're 6 or 65, you can you know, you can help out and follow what fulfills you and makes you happy.
Definitely. Before we go, were there any success stories that we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention, or any advice on the most profitable crops? Anything else you wanted to share before we let you go?
I would say my overall success has just been being able to, yeah, survive and thrive the first season, because the first season was terrifying. I had no idea. I was in it all by myself. I had a very meager savings of $10,000, and I put it all on the line, and it was April 20th and I still didn't have a garden because it was too wet. Like, it was horrifying, but like by the winter, I felt really good because, maybe I didn't make so much as far as like what I wrote on my taxes, because it's not so much the financial, but like you saying, the value in other things that aren't monetary. Like, I'm bartering every week for my meat, my raw milk, my honey. I even got my knife sharpened last week for trading some lettuce. It was amazing. Like, there's values past the dollar is what it is.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
and those are intangible. Essentially, that's in real estate, there's a term called phantom income. So that's a little bit of a phantom income, what you're not having to expend on those things. And
Yeah.
essentially a savings. It's almost income.
Yeah, and you think about, health being wealth too, and
Yeah, definitely. So you're getting the physical exercise. You don't have to worry about going to the gym, and
yeah,
you're getting the healthiest food on earth. Essentially
yeah,
from the table, right? So that's fantastic. Well, we're really excited to learn your story, more about your story, to get a chance to meet you face to face, and interested in following your journey more. So maybe we can follow up in a year or sometime next season.
That'd be great.
Keep in touch, and we really look forward to hearing more over time.
Yeah, and come see us now and then on the planning for retirement, if you would.
And Gardens All as well.
Okay, yeah, and if you guys could send me the links on that stuff, that'd be
yeah.
We definitely will.
Sure.
We'll send you all the links, and we'll put your links as well, your Facebook. Do you have a website yet?
Yes, it's earthfirstfarm.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and that stuff.
Okay.
But it was wonderful talking to you guys, and I really support what you guys are doing. And like I said, everyone's doing their own part, what you can do it in your time, in your space. So that's important.
Definitely. Awesome. Okay. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
See you.